In this video we will see how to interact um, in the viewport. Now in one of the previous videos you will have seen the viewport functionality to display textured slices. Viewport is a new functionality in the clipping plane. What it does is add a virtual camera to the at the clipping at the center of the clipping plane, and then you can use that virtual camera as a local camera and see the details in your data. So you have a global camera, which is this complete viewport, and then you can have a small viewport which will show you the details within the data set using this virtual camera. So let's add a clipping plane. I have pressed C to add a clipping plane, and we will now add set the transfer function set to 0. So we will be basically taking transfer functions from set 0, and let's turn on the viewport. So 0.5, meaning the my viewport will be the lower in the lower left corner of this screen. So I have turned this thing on, and this is my viewport here. So I'm looking at in the blue axis here is my view direction. So my virtual camera is here, right here at the red dot. The blue direction is my view direction here inside into the volume. Green axis is my up direction, and red axis is my right direction. Now I can rotate that, say hover over this and then rotate that so that we get a normal view like this. So right axis, so the right vector is this red and up vector is this green. Okay, now we have got a textured slice here. So now we can interact with the clipping plane from the viewport itself. Rather than hovering over the clipping plane here, we can just go into the viewport and then interact with the clipping plane. So dragging the left mouse button, I'll be rotating the clipping plane about either the red axis or the green axis. So vertical drag will rotate about the red axis, and the horizontal drag will rotate the clipping plane about green axis. Now if you want to rotate the clipping plane about blue axis, then we have to take recourse to the keyboard. We have to use left arrow or right arrow to rotate your virtual camera about the view direction. Now view direction is basically the blue axis. So you can use left and right arrows, or shift left for bigger steps, shift left or shift right for the bigger steps, or just left and right arrow for 1-degree rotations, whereas shift will give you 10-degree rotations. Okay, now to drag the camera about the red and green axis, use the right mouse button. So right mouse drag will translate your virtual camera. Left mouse drag will rotate your virtual camera, and then left and right arrow keys will rotate about the view direction. You can also use up and down arrow keys to move the camera along the view direction, that is the blue axis. Similarly, shift up and shift down will change by a bigger amount. So in steps of 10, when you press shift up arrow and down arrow, or just up arrow and down arrow, it will shift by 1 unit. Okay, now you have got a virtual camera. What we can do is we can add a thickness to it, because currently we are just looking at a slice of the volume, but we can give it a thickness. So press space bar in the viewport and you can have a thickness parameter here. Currently the thickness is 0, meaning we are just displaying the textured slice. Suppose we give a thickness of 10 or say 20, then what we are seeing here is a volume rendered image, 20 slices thick, and these are your near and far planes of the virtual camera. So as you increase the thickness, so instead of say 20 slices, suppose we have say 50 slices, you can see the near and far clipping planes or near and far planes for your virtual camera, and the extent of these boxes is basically what you are seeing here in the viewport. Now if I drag the viewport using the middle mouse button, this will zoom or it will magnify the image. So using middle mouse button, drag the middle mouse button to zoom in to a particular region in your viewport, and you can see the effect of that in the main rendering here. As I reduce the magnification, you can see that the viewport or the box has grown bigger, because that is the image size for in the viewport. Now as I magnify it, you can see that your box here in the main window has become smaller because you have magnified the image in the viewport. So using middle mouse button, you can magnify the image in the viewport. You can press spacebar and change the thickness, or you can use shift and mouse wheel. So let me just show you here. Shift and mouse wheel to change the thickness. Shift and mouse wheel to change the thickness here. So let me just take that on the side so that you can see the effect of mouse wheel. So I am changing the thickness of this the virtual camera minimum and maximum extents of this viewport. So shift and mouse wheel will change this thickness, or if you don't have mouse wheel, then you will have to use spacebar and then change the thickness parameter. So spacebar and then change the thickness parameter here. And if you just use the mouse wheel without the shift key, then this acts as moving the virtual camera in the direction of the viewing normal. So in the direction of this blue axis, or in the view direction. Now the advantage of having viewport is not just to look at the slices, but if you want a detailed view of a certain region in your data, for example I am looking at kidney structure here, then I can really concentrate on this structure and forget about the, or really not forget but ignore the other other clutter in your data, and you can just change your view and then concentrate on different parts of your volume. So your virtual camera can basically act as a way to reduce clutter, and you can actually just concentrate on the parts that you are interested in. Also, say press spacebar in the viewport and you can turn off the clipping here. In the previous video I had showed uh, one way of turning off the clipping is by going into, let me cancel this, going into the bricks editor and then switching off clipping from here. But what I can do is just hover over the clipping the viewport and then switching off the clipping from here, and it will just switch off the clip plane in the main rendering. So you can always look at the entire data set here in the main viewport and then concentrate on the intricacies or the minute details in that data set from the viewport. Now you can also add another clipping plane here and just add the parameters for the viewport. You can again turn off the clipping here and using mouse wheel I can increase the magnification, increase the thickness, and then say concentrate on a particular region. Now these lines here, let me just change the color of one of these. Suppose make it green. So this is the green viewport or the green clipping plane, so that's why these are the these lines show where that other cut is. Now in this case the cut, the green cut is through this one here, this kidney part here, and as I move this this clipping plane, you can see the where that green cut is in relation to the purple cut here. And then I can reduce the magnification here, and you can see this is the cut we are looking at. And you can see the changes in the other viewport. So in this way you can get a close-up view of fine details in your data set.